which if you haven't read what staff gave us, the additional information, probably important to do that. Have you heard from Joe? Because he told me he was coming tonight.
No, I heard from him indicating that he might not be here on the 22nd.
Okay.
But Terry, did you hear anything? Sometimes he comes right at the minute from work, so maybe you just give
one
him,
more minute and then get started.
yeah.
Speaking of the devil.
I'm sorry.
Not the devil, not the devil, the friend.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I was saying, I just saw him the other night, he said he was gonna be.
you know,
On the second Thursday of every month, I go from one board meeting to another.
Oh my.
So it's a little bit tough for me. I
You
know.
doing some jumping jacks to keep you awake or?
Yeah, it's
All right, why don't we go ahead and get started, cause we're right at the top of the hour. Okay. All right, let me now welcome you to the August 8th meeting of the Town of Berthoud Planning Commission. I call this meeting to order at right at 6 p.m. It's the tradition of the Planning Commission to start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Rieger, at this time, will you please take the Planning Commission roll?
Chairperson Anderson.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Smith. Here. Secretary Semadalis. Commissioner Donnelly.
Here.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pond.
Here.
Thank you. Are there people joining us via Zoom on this meeting? No, thank you.
this time.
Thank you.
Chair Anderson, Town Engineer Noah Nemers is going to be joining us. If he's not signed on yet, we will make sure that he knows that we've announced that he may attend.
Thank you for that. All right, well, good evening. I'm Karen Anderson, the current chair of the Planning Commission. I'd like to thank you for being with us tonight. Copies of tonight's agenda is on the table here in front, this little black table. Please take one, and at this point, mute your phone, if you would. If you want to speak tonight, please come and sign. There's right next to the agenda is a sheet to sign in to speak. With regard to the minutes of July 25th, are there any comments or changes, commissioners? No?
No.
All right, if not, then I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Smith approves, or moves to approve, excuse me. Do we have a second?
I second.
And Commissioner Pond seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, noes, abstentions, all right, great. I want to mention to those in the audience that the members of the Planning Commission are volunteers, and like many of you, we are residents of Berthoud. Our duty is to review application materials as they're provided, hear public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the land use code review procedures. In doing so, please note that the code and other regulatory prescriptions provide certain criteria for approval that we must consider, and you'll hear us talk about those this evening. We have staff in attendance tonight from the Berthoud Community Development Department who are here to provide us with presentations of the agenda items. We have one land use item tonight. They'll lay out the criteria and the parameters for approval and who will answer the commissioner's questions. Once the staff has completed their presentation, the applicant will be permitted to provide information about their application, and after that, the public hearing will be open. And we gain insight from the information and viewpoints the public provides. Your input is very welcomed and appreciated. If you wish to speak tonight, you'll be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern, please provide us again with your name and spell any uncommon names so that the record will accurately reflect your comments. And at that point, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the matter being discussed. And we ask that you direct your comments to the members of the Plan Commission and not the applicants or other speakers. Okay, as stated tonight, we have actually, there are two related items to be heard. If the commission decides to recommend to the town board that they approve the proposed master plan, we'll review the request to amend the zoning map. Excuse me, my throat's really dry this evening. To recap the review process, note that staff will introduce each item, followed by a staff presentation, and then the applicant may make a presentation. After that presentation, the public hearing will open. Okay, before we ask Ton Hildebrand, Senior Planner from the Community Development Department, to present our first and only, actually two-part land use issue, I would like to publicly disclose that my home is located in Farmstead 1, Phase 1. However, due to the distance from my home to the proposed Farmstead 3 area, which is the land use matter before us this evening, and due to the very remote connection between that area and my home, I believe there is no perceived or actual conflict of interest. I can fairly and objectively review this matter and both matters, I should say, both the rezoning and the Farmstead 3 neighborhood master plan. Now with that, I would ask Ton to begin.
Okay. So for members of the audience, this part of the presentation is really for you to understand the process that we're going to go through tonight in a little bit more detail than what Chair
Can I
Anderson.
interrupt you? I wanted to introduce you.
Oh,
to
I
the audience.
apologize.
So I didn't realize you were gonna come up first, so I apologize for that. But this is Ann Johnson. She is the director of the Berkeley Community Development Department. Go ahead. I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Chair Anderson. So the first step in a land use application is a pre-application process. That's where the applicant comes and discusses hurdles, opportunities, hiccups that might be perceived along the way with the applicant and, fire protection district, other special districts, and members of town staff such as public works, operations, planning. We have formal meetings, lots of input, lots of direction, lots of going back and forth too. The intent is to give as much information up front as possible so that the applications can be very strong. We want applicants to get through the process as quickly as possible. So once that application is submitted, we do a pretty thorough completeness review. Once the application has been checked in and it appears to be as complete as possible with all of the materials that are requested, then we do send that application out to referral agencies such as the fire district, the school district, any water districts, the Weld County, Larimer County, everybody who may have a vested stake in the application. We give them an opportunity to give us comments because we don't know everything, the plans of all of these other districts around us. Staff takes those notifications and the referral responses. Staff is also reviewing the application requirements in the code and does a good scrub of the application itself, compiles the staff comments with the referral comments, and then that one package goes back to the applicant. Then the applicant addresses those comments and does a second submittal. Sometimes we have applications because of some complex issue that might be in the development review period for several rounds. We know and have understood and have heard you, as well as the town board, that you want to see applications as clean as possible come to you, and so that's what we strive to provide to you. Once we determine that an application is ready for public hearing, we schedule and notice the public hearings. They're posted on property, they're noticed in the newspaper, and then we we make the packet materials and get that out to you. So tonight, we are at the public meeting or the public hearing. Staff will make a presentation, then the applicant will make a presentation, and then after that, then Chair Anderson will open the public hearing and accept public testimony. Generally, the public speaks for 3 minutes apiece, and then after the public testimony is closed, then Planning Commission has the opportunity to deliberate, ask questions of staff, and ask questions of the applicant for clarification. And then again, taking a look at the criteria for approval, making a determination and a recommendation on both of the items before you tonight to go to the Town Board of Trustees. At that point in time, staff is bringing you a recommendation based on the criteria found in the code. At the time that you make a recommendation, staff represents Planning Commission going to the Town Board of Trustees meeting, and our recommendation then is based on what you've said this evening. So after your post-approval actions, again, it's going to the Town Board of Trustees, and we repeat this very same process, that hearing process with the Town Board of Trustees. If there are conditions of approval, those are met at the appropriate time during the development review process. Documents are signed if approved. Documents are recorded, and then we have internal records management that we are deploying. So at this point in time, then this is more detail about the public hearing. I don't think we need to go through the details of this. Quite a bit of that was just discussed. But at this point in time, if you don't have any questions regarding the process, then I am going to turn it over to our senior planner, Ton Hillenbrand, and she will introduce the case and put it into record. So do you have any questions of me regarding the process? Commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Well, good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Ton Hillenbrand, Senior Planner. So this evening, this is the Farmstead Third Filing Neighborhood Master Plan and Change of Zone. Before I jump into the specifics of the project, this first slide, I wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the land division and rezone process so that you know where we are in the phasing, essentially. So neighborhood master plans are a requirement for any rezone application and preliminary plat. So because this is a rezone request, therefore the concurrent neighborhood master plan. So essentially what this creates, the neighborhood master plan creates an overall concept plan for the development. In the process of neighborhood master plan, there is a referral agency review, and Anne touched upon this in her first slide that she was discussing. And that means that referral agencies, both internal and external, review the application submittal items so that the planning department, our town engineer, water utilities, fire district, school district, the county are amongst many of the referral agencies that these applications are referred to. So traffic impact studies that are submitted, drainage reports, site plans, all that are then reviewed by each of these referral agencies and whomever has the applicable knowledge, essentially. Following referral agency review, and which may require one, if not more, referral periods. For instance, Farmstead Third Filing has gone through 5 reviews, I'm sorry. So once that's complete and we got confirmation that the majority, if not all, of those referral agency comments or concerns have been addressed, we then move into the public hearing phase. So the public hearing is scheduled. Public hearing for neighborhood master plan includes Planning Commission, as we are here to see you this evening, and then it moves on to Town Board of Trustees. If approved by the Town Board of Trustees, the applicant can then move into the second step, which is preliminary plat. A preliminary plat creates the preliminary property lines as well as the preliminary infrastructure designs. And it goes through a very similar process. So it too goes out for referral agency review, and that could be multiple review periods. And then once all those comments and issues are addressed, it then moves into the public hearing phase. Preliminary plat also comes back to you all. So it will come back to planning commission and then it moves on to town board of trustees. And at preliminary plat, many of the documents that you see submitted at neighborhood master plan will be also submitted, revised, updated, and submitted with preliminary plat. So again, anything that we see with, say, a utility plan or drainage report, at preliminary plat, those will be updated accordingly if necessary and will be submitted as part of that application and reviewed once again. So then, following approval at preliminary plat, the document is recorded. It doesn't create sellable lots, but it is recorded for tracking purposes. Then it goes into the third phase, which is final plat. So final plat creates the actual defined property line. So it creates sellable lots, and it also solidifies infrastructure and utility locations, easements, all that wonderful necessary elements of a development. Again, it goes through referral agency review and likely goes through multiples with same referral agencies. And again, at final plat, many of those same documents are resubmitted but in final format. So at preliminary plat, we see 80% completeness in our documents. By final plat, we want to see 100% completeness, meaning that all issues need to be resolved by final plat. Then once it passes through referral agency review, again, it is scheduled for public hearing, and with final plat, it only comes to planning commission. It does not go on to town board of trustees, so you would make the final decision on final plat. Then after final plat and it's approved, then we get all the final documents recorded, and that includes a development agreement, the actual final plat, amongst other things. Once they get through final plat, they can then move into, for commercial development specifically, they can move into either site plan review or use by special review, and that's dependent upon the zone district and the specific use, and each lot would be required to go through that process. So in essence, that provides you a very broad overview of what this process looks like in totality. So any questions on that before I move forward? All right, so as I said, this is the Farmstead third filing. The current undeveloped 124-acre property is located at the southeast corner of Mountain Avenue and Weld County Road 1, as seen on your screen, highlighted in blue. The subject property is currently zoned PUD, or Planned Unit Development, and is designated as suburban business, suburban residential, as well as urban residential on the future land use map. And that is the colorful map on the right center of the screen. The applicant is proposing two requests: neighborhood master plan and rezone. According to project records, 3 of the 4 parcels making up the Farmstead third filing were annexed in 1997, while the 4th parcel was annexed in 1998. All 4 parcels were zoned PUD in April of 2000. The subject parcels were included in the Farmstead second filing, neighborhood master plan, which was approved in 2021. The Farmstead second filing included the subject property as well as the land directly to the west across Weld County Road 1. At that time in 2021, the properties to the west were rezoned as a matter of function and proximity to existing utilities. The intent was to rezone the parcels to the east of Weld County Road 1, what is now being referred to as Farmstead third filing, at a later date as development became more feasible. 3 years later, the proposed Farmstead third filing is relatively consistent with the Farmstead second filing neighborhood master plan as approved in 2021. The overall total density has been reduced with the current proposal, and modifications have been made to proposed commercial areas. Over the course of the last few years, the town has phased out the PUD process, and the PUD zone district is no longer a preferred zone district. So the town has encouraged property owners with PUD zoned properties to transition their projects to a current zone district rather than continuing with the PUD and FDP process. By doing so, developers can alter their development plans to align more closely with the vision of the found in the most recent version of the updated comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan's future land use map is a guiding document and is not a boundary set such as a zoning map. Applicants for rezoning provide information on how the intent of the comprehensive plan and the future land use map can be met by the rezoning request. The Farmstead third filing neighborhood master plan and rezone project had 5 rounds of referral agency review, and additionally, neighborhood notification was sent to adjacent property owners, notifying them of the request.
Todd, on that last map, could you explain what we're looking at there, this, on the second filing? Where does the third filing sit relative to this? I can't read the street names.
The area that is surrounded by a red dashed line, that is Farmstead third filing.
Oh, that's the third filing on there.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what you're looking at, this image is Farmstead second filing, which was approved in 2021. So it include both what was on the west side of County Road 1 or Weld County Road 1, and then what was on the east side. The east side is the one that's under and is being modified.
Yep.
So the neighborhood master plan is a conceptual design of the development required with a rezoning or major subdivision application that depicts the applicant's vision for the overall development, including zoning, transportation, pedestrian network, parks, open space, subdivision identity standards, and other amenities. The neighborhood master plan is binding on a development, and all future plating or zoning actions must follow the approved plan or apply for an amendment of said plan. The Farmstead third filing neighborhood master plan proposes commercial at the northwest corner, transitioning to higher density residential lots for the remaining portion along Mountain Avenue, a future public school site on the northeast corner, single-family alley-loaded lots south along Weld County Road 1, and lower density residential lots on the remaining portions of the site. The zoning map similarly shows suburban commercial or SC at the northwest corner, urban residential or UR along Weld County Road 1, and suburban residential or SR for the remaining portions of the site. Section 30-6-106 of the municipal code states that a neighborhood master plan must consist of specific elements as mentioned previously, including but not limited to zoning, transportation, open space, and parks. Through staff and referral agency review, it was found that the neighborhood master plan contains those required elements. This screen shows the 2 proposed pocket parks and a future school site. So section 6 of the town development code states that the town shall use the following review criteria as seen on in your packet and on the screen, in addition to other applicable provisions of the code to evaluate that application. In order to approve a neighborhood master plan, the criteria must be met. Continuing to the next slide and the remaining criteria, staff finds that Farmstead third filing neighborhood master plan request meets the review criteria. And we can certainly come back to the slide when I finished with the presentation. So for the zoning, as already noted, the subject property was zoned PUD or planned unit development in 2000. In 2021, when the Farmstead second filing neighborhood master plan was approved, the intent was to rezone the parcels to the west of Weld County Road 1, what is now Farmstead third filing, at a later date as the development became more feasible. So 3 years later, the proposed Farmstead third filing is relatively consistent with the Farmstead second filing neighborhood master plan as approved in 2021. Over the course of the last few years, as I mentioned, the town has phased out the PUD process. So the town has strongly encouraged property owners with PUD zone properties to redevelop or transition to a current zone district rather than continuing with the PUD. And by doing so, the developers can alter their development plans to align more closely with the vision found in the most recent update of the comprehensive plan. So the proposed commercial area would be focused in the SC or suburban commercial zoned area at the northwest corner of the site, while the residential uses would be focused in the SR or suburban residential and urban residential, which is UR. This request is consistent with the future land use map contained in the comprehensive plan. And of course, those areas have been outlined in colors to make it a little bit easier for you guys to distinguish which areas are where. Rezoning is addressed through an official zoning map amendment. Section 3 of the Development Code states, for the purpose of establishing and maintaining sound, stable, and desirable development within the town, the zoning map shall not be amended except when it addresses one or more of the criteria provided in the packet and on the screen. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning meets criteria 2. So the town has shifted away from planned unit developments, and the proposed rezoning will help create more consistency between the project and what is intended in the future land use map contained in the comprehensive plan, of course. And staff find that the Farmstead third filing rezone request meets that review criteria. So as we come to staff recommendations, I'd like to address the additional information that was provided to you earlier this evening. So you were provided with a packet that looks like this. So this would be the updated conditions of approval. In addition to that, just before we got down here, you also were provided an email that we received just before this hearing. So I'm going to give this to the applicant real quick. So in the email, was provided by Todd, and I don't want to butcher his last name, but he is, what is it? Picion. Todd is with the Thompson School District. So the information I've provided you, so that the packet I provided contains updated conditions of approval specific to the neighborhood master plan. Staff received review comments from the Thompson School District on Tuesday this week regarding the proposed future school site. So which is located at the northeast corner of the project. The school district has indicated that they are no longer interested in the specific site due to conflicts with an existing oil and gas facility located northeast of the site. So staff created a condition of approval, which is condition number 3, as seen on the screen and in the additional information I provided you. And that condition states that the applicant shall provide a letter from the Thompson School District confirming either the school district no longer desires a future site in the Farmstead third filing, or the school district has agreed to an alternative site or school site within the Farmstead third filing. If an alternative site is selected, that site shall be provided at the preliminary plat submittal. So that would be the next phase in this process. And depending on the relocation, a revised neighborhood master plan could potentially may be warranted. So typically, the town is not involved in selecting potential school sites, and that is a discussion and that is figured and decided between the developer and the school district. So the only role that the town plays in ensuring is just that we want to ensure that any commitments that have been made, those commitments are reflected in the project documents as they are submitted. So the proposed school site was initially reflected on the Farmstead second filing neighborhood master plan approved in 2021, and then continued collaboration will need to be needed between the applicant and the school district moving forward. And so that's essentially what that condition of approval is intended to do, is to make sure that we just simply get this resolved at preliminary plat. Again, we have encouraged the applicant, they have been noticed and have received the comments from the school district, so they are aware of them. It is my understanding that they have been in discussions with the school district since receiving that information. And so we simply just will continue to encourage that moving forward. So with that said, staff recommends Planning Commission make a motion to recommend approval of the Farmstead third filing neighborhood master plan to the Town Board of Trustees with the 3 conditions provided in your packet as well as on the screen. And additionally, staff recommends Planning Commission make a motion to recommend approval to the Town Board of Trustees of the Farmstead third filing rezone request to rezone from PUD or planned unit development to SR, suburban residential, SC, suburban commercial, and UR, urban residential, as noted in your packet and on the screen. And of course, I am available for any questions, and if you have any about the information I've provided you, let me know.
Commissioners, questions?
Well, concerning the third item, do I understand that the developer has to find a place where to put a school, a land to put a school, or it's not mandatory?
So it's between the school district and the developer to determine what is appropriate. If the school district would prefer to have a location in Farmstead, they would need to sort that out. So it's really up to them in their conversations.
So we are out of that discussion.
We were out of that discussion, yes. We just want to make sure it's resolved before we get to preliminary plat or essentially any much further into the process.
make sure I understand. When Farmstead 2 was being proposed, Farmstead 3 was also somewhat shown with those, with that those documents. And at that time, the school was included, right, back in 2021?
Correct.
Thanks, Ton. So why 5 rounds of referral agency review? Is that related to the school? Is that typical? Can you
No,
give us
so
some
it-
context?
Rounds of review are really dependent upon the completeness of the application. So initial submittal, if it's absolutely complete, they have all the required, let me back up a little bit. So when they submit their application, initially, we review it for completeness, meaning that there are specific documents that are required, and that's listed in the development code. So for like a neighborhood master plan, for instance, of course, you have to have your neighborhood master plan document, the rezone or the preliminary plat. If it's a preliminary plat, we also require like a landscape plan, and with that comes other documents. And then there's a list of other things. So when they first come in, we make sure at least those documents have been included. And then it gets sent out for a referral agency review. And in that time frame, which is a 4-week review period, our referral agencies will review what is pertinent to them and what whomever they may be. And then they determine how complete those documents are. So for instance, Baseline Engineering is our consultant engineer. So they'll review, any civil plans. So anything with water utilities, connections, roadway, all that drainage. So they'll review those documents. If any information is missing, they then provide staff comments. And then staff does the same thing. I do the same for planning perspective, going through our development code, going through section 2, which is our design standards, and essentially marking off, making sure the requirements have all been met. And what hasn't been met then makes its way into a staff review letter. That, and staff compiles all the referral agency comments, provides it in that letter, and then gives that to the applicant. So then they have an opportunity then to address all those comments, make changes or revisions based upon that. And some comments warrant significant changes, others not so much, and so they resubmit. So every time they resubmit, it goes back out for a review to ensure compliance. And again, based upon how complete or how well those initial comments were addressed, or new comments may come up based upon the revisions, you can go through that multiple times. So it's common to go through multiple rounds of review. But again, it's really dependent upon the applicant and the quality of their submittals.
Thank you. One more question, more as a process question. Would we see a new traffic study at preliminary plat?
Correct. So it may reflect much of the same information that we would see, that we would see here, or it could have significant revisions. If something, if for instance, they move forward and remove, say, the school site, maybe that has impacts on what has been proposed for internal roadway systems, and so but if there's significant modifications, that may be reflected, but overall, you're gonna see very much the same data.
Any other questions of Tom?
I do have more questions. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding the agreement or the requirement to have a school site on Farmstead 3. And so I guess what is Farmstead committed, have they committed to the town and the school district to have a school site?
We have committed to the school district. It's not our involvement, we don't. So we do have, there's language within our code, and I believe there's fee that you can do a dedication, correct, or you have to pay impact fees. If you dedicate, then I think it waives the fees. There's a provision in the code that developer has that option, and through discussions with the school district, they may determine that that's the option they would like to proceed with.
So they
So it's-
dedicated this property for the school back in 2018.
They committed that, yes, they committed to provide that site back, yes, and I believe Todd provided a breakdown of when those first discussions started. And then it was through the neighborhood master plan, essentially, was kind of put in, documented, And then as that moves forward, again, our role is simply to ensure that those things that were agreed upon or approved at that time move forward. Unless we hear otherwise, that, for instance, the school district decides they don't want it any longer, then we just need that confirmation.
I guess the school district is not necessarily saying they don't wanna, they're requesting, it looks to me like they wanna move it to somewhere else.
It,
In the,
from the sounds of, yes, how the letter is written, that's, sounds like they're open to that conversation or would like to have that conversation.
And it seems here that they're saying they wanna move it because of oil and gas
Correct.
issues.
Yes, there's an existing oil and gas well on the south side of Newell Lake, if you know where that's at. So the site is essentially here on Mountain Avenue, County Road 1, and Newell Lake is to the northeast, up and across. Yeah, and it's existing.
And Ton, does that, was the original school site proposed, is that within 2,000 feet, or what was the new oil and gas standards that came, do they apply there?
So the oil and gas standards, yes, were recently updated. I'm not sure what prompted this with the school district, but they were looking into it, knowing that I think oil and gas has been updated, I believe, and I can't speak definitively because I don't know the ins and outs of the oil and gas regulations by heart. But there is for new oil and gas wells, there's a setback requirement, so they cannot be built within, I believe, and this oil and gas well is in Weld County. So it's Weld County's regulations that would apply in this particular case. So any new oil and gas cannot be within a certain distance of development, and I believe it's 2,000 feet. They have then what's called a reverse buffer that new residential, or I believe in this case, any new development could not be, the setback is 500 feet. So it is reduced. And so I believe, but based upon what I read in the letter, it sounds like the school district would prefer to still maintain the 2,000 feet. That's their standard and requirement that they have chosen for themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question I had, and I was kinda confused by it, I mean, it looks like this future school site is included in the boundary of the third filing, but it's labeled as the fifth filing.
Yes.
So is it included in this third filing or
Yes.
not?
So the reason it's labeled that way is because a couple weeks back, we initially got the heads up from the school district. I received comments from one of their planner that they were concerned with this location for the oil and gas reasons. They requested an extension in providing comments while their board made a decision. And so with that knowledge, I had discussions with the applicant and suggested moving forward to add, instead, because previously it was just future school site, to add that it was a future school site or potentially fifth filing residential. Because it has been reviewed in the third filing as that potential school site. So if it were to be changed to additional residential lots, we as staff and our referral agencies have not had an opportunity to review that. So we could not include that in this filing as residential, because we've reviewed it as a school site. So if in the end they come back and after tonight and they have discussions and they decide that they are not moving forward with the school site at all, then Farmstead, the applicant, will need to come back for a fifth filing to address simply that portion that was and has been identified as that school site.
So
But
it's
they will need to
it's
come
the
back.
third filing if it remains a school,
Correct. It
and
will
it will be a fifth filing if it gets modified to be suburban residential.
Why is it?
Or, I mean, I guess it's the zoning is suburban residential regardless. As suburban residential, you can have a school in
Correct.
suburban residential
Mhm.
zoning.
You sure can, yeah. It's fifth filing because we already have an application for a fourth filing.
Yeah.
So their fourth filing is a commercial portion of the site that we are currently reviewing, so that's why this would be the fifth filing.
I kind of thought it had to be something like that.
Yeah. Yep. It can get confusing, filings, phases, all the good stuff.
And I guess if the school, if there's some, there has to be some kind of third party agreement outside of this board to move that school.
And I can't address that. The applicant could potentially address that question.
But I guess how you were describing it, if they decided to not put the school there, then would the applicant be required to provide some kind of fee or something for schools? Like, I think, did you say that?
And that's, we would just want, that's why we would just like a letter confirming one way or the other. Because then we would know that, yes, instead of a dedication of a school site, then it will enact that other requirement.
Which is some type of impact fee, you said.
An impact fee, so that's, and I guess that's what I thought was, yeah, in the proposed motion, it talks about, I've lost it now. But shouldn't it say that if it's new, there would be assessed an impact fee?
No, the condition does not reference fees.
And if I may, Ms. Moran and Chair Anderson, so it is a private party discussion between the landowner, the developer, and the school district. Let's say that the agreement is that the school district would purchase the property from the developer. Well, then the school district may determine that they would like to collect impact fees at the time of building permit to offset that purchase price. I don't know, that could be an agreement, and again, the town isn't party to that agreement. Or it could be that the site is dedicated. And I've been part of lots of development applications where sites are dedicated for schools or libraries, fire districts. And that, again, is just an agreement. And so I wanna make that clear that we're not making determinations on fees or assessments, because that needs to be a private party conversation, and once that determination is made, then we'll know what we need to assess, if we need to assess. So sorry for the interruption.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Do you mind to pull up a map where we can see this part of Will County Road 42 and a half? And could you provide some explanation of what triggered this recommendation?
Is that recommendation 2?
Recommendation 2, that's right.
I don't know that I can.
Yeah, I think it's
Can I
the
exit out of
south
this,
side.
Terry? Can I exit without messing you up?
If you can't find it, that's also okay.
I just wanna.
Yeah, there's like a typo, it's kinda confusing. Half Will County.
Bear with me.
And
I don't know if this will work.
town engineer Noah Nemers is on the
Zoom?
yes,
Thank you.
if you have any questions for him. And maybe before transitioning from planning presentation, we can ask Noah just to review from an engineering perspective what they do review and what they look at, and maybe even give a forecast on what they'll be reviewing with the preliminary plat submittal if this is approved.
And the number two condition in the suggested motion is his recommendation?
That's part of engineering recommendations,
Okay.
yep.
Is there any questions?
Maybe he can tell us about the rationale behind that recommendation.
Might need to pose the question again, he was offline for a moment.
Noah, can
Good
you hear
evening,
us?
Commissioners. Yeah, can you hear me, Commissioners?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Noah Nevers, Baseline Engineering, Town Engineer. Yeah, so when we look at those situations where there's a gravel road fronting the adjacent development, we rely on the town standards and town code, which requires that any adjacent public streets to a new development are the responsibility of the developer to improve their half of that roadway. In this case, this is a local road. It really doesn't serve much, but since it's an entrance to this development, it's their southern half. We have asked them to ensure that they have proper right of way and improve their half of the roadway, with curb gutter, sidewalk, and paving.
And sorry, this is the best I can do because
No,
I
that
can't
makes
share the other
sense.
screens. So this is, so it would only
will-
be right there. Sorry, Noah.
I will add that, this developer and the team has come back and presented some additional information that they don't necessarily need to provide us at this point. But I don't think that they're opposed to the requirement. It just had not been addressed at the time of the neighborhood master plan, so we left it on there as a condition.
Thank you.
And truly to provide clarification on the conditions that have been provided to you on this project, the intent is simply so that we can ensure this is addressed at preliminary plat. So it just moves it along so that we can move from neighborhood master plan into preliminary plat without any additional holdup. So that's the intent of those conditions. So they could very well meet them and they can provide that documentation at submittal. So.
Other questions of development staff?
What is the current use of the town on the south side? Is this town of Berthoud zoned M2? What is there? What does the town have there?
I don't believe we have anything developed on that property currently. I'm not sure how we use that property.
No, is that wastewater treatment or water treatment down there?
That's
Yeah,
further-
Ken and his group would know better what the use is.
Yeah, cause water treatment's down here at the very bottom where I'm circling. I believe.
Let's
We can't see that.
Yeah.
So at the very bottom, there's off, so County Road 1 or WCR 1, and then at 42 1/4, at the end of that road, there's some buildings you see after a brown vacant field, and it's kind of cut in half. That would be the wastewater facility.
And there is a gun club on those smaller parcels first, and then the town property.
Are there any required offsets or anything between a wastewater treatment plant and a suburban residential neighborhood?
No, and the wastewater treatment plant is lower, is not touching this property. Yeah. So we have requirements, I think one of the first pages in your packet, the tables does provide some information about required buffers. And per this development, there are no required buffers to adjacent, property that is not included in this request.
Any other questions, folks, of community development staff?
I don't wanna get down a rabbit hole of traffic flow, but can you just remind us if anything was triggered at the intersection of County Road 1 and 287 during the second filing? Was there a stoplight triggered or a roundabout? Do you remember? Is it a roundabout?
Which intersections?
287 and County Road 1.
State
That would
Highway
be-
56.
Yeah,
Oh,
56 and 1.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm like.
Yeah, I'm talking about 56 and County Road 1.
56,
Yeah.
yes, there
Sorry.
will be a roundabout that is being proposed currently, and then the applicant is currently working on that and getting design and all the details sorted out. So there will be a roundabout at 56 and County Road 1 at proposed Tenderfoot and Nebraska as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the mix-up.
Nebraska's where, and just to clarify, make sure that we're all on the same page. Nebraska is a street that would go through Farmstead to 1,
Mhm.
and that's where that roundabout would go, right?
Correct. Yes, and Tenderfoot will also go into Farmstead Second as well. Yes.
Any other questions? A lot of good questions to me. Okay, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Did you want Noah to talk?
Yeah. Sure. Noah, can you, do you have comments that you'd like to make?
Was there any additional questions?
Anyone have
Sharon, sorry.
any questions of Noah at this point? Okay, I don't think we have any more questions of Noah at this, right now, so we may later, but not at this point. All right, with that, we would ask, the applicant would like to make their presentation. Looks like we've come forward.
There's a little red thing there. You get the little red pointer go.
There we go. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you. Members of Planning Commission, thanks for being here tonight. Steve Schroyer, Schroyer Resources, representing Postmodern Development as a developer. We also have on our team Vaughn Civil Group, TAB Planners, and Matt Delich with Delich Traffic Consultants, which will answer some questions for you in a little bit. We're here tonight just to talk about the Farmstead Filing 3. I hate following Tawn because she does such a good job. She kind of takes the thunder out of all of our presentations. So we'll go through this quickly. This is kind of where Farmstead Filing 3 is positioned on the southeast corner of 56 and State Highway 1. This is kind of how it's positioned out there today. On the east side, where you see Filing 2, that's what was previously accepted and recorded and approved. Under construction currently, if you drive out there, you'll see earth movers moving dirt. Lots going on. To the east is where the farm fields are currently positioned, where you see actually corn grown and things like that. That's what we're talking about tonight is Filing 3. And it's been a while since we've been in here, and my goodness, we've done a lot of heavy lifting with Filing 2 and even continuing to work with staff since we did get Filing 2 approved. We have a master development agreement that we have done that'll be the precursor to a development agreement for Filing 3. So it'll be kind of a duplicate of that master development agreement. We partnered with the town on the Highway 56 roundabout. We've been diligently working with CDOT. That's taken a long time, partnering with the town on how to build and construct that roundabout. There will be a roundabout at Nebraska. There will be a roundabout at Tenderfoot now. The new traffic impact study, Commissioner Smith, you asked about the traffic impact study. As part of Filing 4 and Filing 3, we did a master update to the traffic impact study. And that took into a lot more of the town's background traffic. For instance, Nebraska will go from County Road 1 clear over to 287 eventually. And we had to pick up that background traffic. And that was the precursor to another roundabout being included at Tenderfoot. So there's some things that happened in between the last time we were up here in front of you and to where we are today. So that roundabout is actually being amended in our Filing 2 plans and coming in with the Filing 4 construction of the commercial area, which is, I'll show you that in a minute, where the commercial area is at the southwest corner of 56 and Highway County Road 1. We also worked with the town on the regional park, the pool, the Berthoud Adaptive Park. With those guys, the town graciously partnered with us to do that, and with Aaron. The 30-inch sanitary sewer line, that's a massive transmission line that'll go from the sewer treatment plant through Farmstead, go across 56, and will continue clear up through the northwest part of town to take sewer from other parts of the town. So we're working with Ken and their team on that. The raw water system was going in on Filing 2, the domestic water extensions that will be further extended to Filing 3. All of County Line Road will be rebuilt in Filing 2, and also the major regional detention for the whole area. As Tawn alluded to, this is kind of how we broke down the zoning, the future zoning. The commercial, the SC for the commercial area, the SR for the suburban residential is the bulk of the property. As we go to the east where there's really no development at this date, and the SC, the suburban commercials in the corner where we do have some commercial products coming in the future. This is an illustrative rendering of kind of what Tawn has shown. You see Filing 1 over here to the west, already kind of complete and built. And I think Commissioner Anderson, you said you live over there somewhere. Filing 2, what's being constructed today. Here's the commercial center that we were just speaking about. Here's the roundabout at 56. Here's the roundabout at Tenderfoot. Here's the roundabout in Nebraska, and then County Line Road continuing south. Nebraska will be the main connection point to this area, and then going east, and will continue onward east as the town grows and develops. So what we're talking about today, obviously, is the Filing 3 that you see here in front of you. the total units that we have here, we have 145 basically 60-foot lots, 170 50-foot lots, 52 40-foot lots, 40-foot lots that are rear loaded. We have 48 of those. And then we also have townhomes, about 149 townhomes, all positioned in here. So the larger lots are, you can see in this yellow color here, and then the larger lots over here in this color. The single family front load, the 50s, would be this lighter tan color positioned here. And then up here in this area. The single family front load, the 40s, would be these guys right here. And then the townhomes, obviously, in this area. I mean, these actually is more the 40s with the rear load. Then the townhomes would be positioned here at the south end and up here along 56. And then the commercial area on the corner that mimics the commercial area on the west side that we had approved with filing 2. The parks and open space, as Ton alluded to, the connection points. The main connection point is running through the east-west through the site in this area, which is the major pocket park and the trail system that will continue on and then get you to this roundabout, which will eventually get you to the 10-acre park, essentially the large regional park for the whole subdivision, which is on the west side in filing 2. You can see the dash lines, the blue and the magenta colored lines and the green are just the trail and network systems inside to get you from point A to point B. Then also noted too, up here, the town does own this property up here for a future town park. I don't know what the status is of that, and maybe you know that, but that's where the future, the town actually owns this ground. There'll be a future park there in this instance. So you see the stubs of the roadways that would be able to go into that and the trail connections to get you to the town park, if you will. And then Ton already alluded to these, the pocket parks inside the development. This is the main pocket park and amenities with it. The other smaller pocket parks and the trailhead, for instance. So that's kind of the development, if you will. The staff recommendations, there's 3 of them. The first one is essentially the sanitary sewer line that Noah had mentioned in his comments for staff comment number 1. There's a bottleneck right here that's 12 inches. There'll be a point to where our flow of our subdivision that line might need to be bigger. And what Noah is trying to get with this condition of approval is just that if it needs to be larger, we're going to increase the size of that. And like Ann said, we'll work that out at preliminary plat. We don't have a problem with that whatsoever. We understand those conditions. Staff comment number 2 of the right-of-way, and that's kind of where it's positioned. I think Ton kind of zoomed in. I can zoom in a little bit closer here. So this is what Noah is talking about. There's a portion of the property at the south to where there's an existing dirt road that kind of goes over and connects to the town of Berthoud's property. Per town code, we're to develop our roadways around the perimeter of our property. This roadway won't go anywhere. It basically dead ends to an old county subdivision of large lot subdivisions. It's not on the streets master plan. Nebraska is the road that will go east-west to carry the traffic throughout the site. So this is just kind of like Noah said, it's in kind of a no man's land, but we agreed to pave it and do our side of the gutter, our curb and gutter on the north side as kind of the entrance to Farmstead. So we don't have a problem with that. There actually is 30 foot of right-of-way there already. The portion of the right-of-way that doesn't exist is owned by the town. So we'll work with the town staff through the preliminary development plan to get that right-of-way dedicated. So we don't have a problem with that either. The school, though, is one that we'd like to talk about briefly. Let me go on. So we kept pretty good notes too whenever we started submitting this. In January of 22, the project was submitted and we got no response from the school district whatsoever. Our round 1 comments, the school district responded and said, you know, we want the school site as it sits on your property that's been shown for years. So they did want the school site. That's round 1. Round 2, we get no response, which indicates that the school wants that property. Round 3, no response, which would indicate the school is okay with where we've shown it. Round 4, they wanted us to actually label the school site. We must have missed the label whenever we resubmitted. And round 5 is where we are today, and that was whenever we got this letter. And they basically said, if an alternate site is not proposed outside of the 2,000-foot buffer around the existing well, the site does not meet the school district's needs and cannot sign off on such. So, you know, the school site as proposed does meet the state requirements. As we talked about the reverse setbacks, new development, new schools can't be within 2,000 feet new wells cannot go within 2,000 feet of a school. However, the school district can choose to build a school within that 2,000-foot buffer as long as they're outside of 500 feet. So our site does meet the requirements that they could do it. For some reason, they don't want that site. The previous developer represented that school site as long as 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago. We've had 5 rounds of review and the school site was accepted as proposed. We've spent over 2 years, time, effort, and money working towards the school site being in that area. And right now for us, spending all this money, it's really not economically feasible for us to move that school site. The school district can get either land, like as Ann mentioned, they can get land or they can get building impact fees at time of building permit. We're proposing that the school district take the site as it is, as they've accepted it, or they collect the fees and find a more suitable location outside of Farmstead. And that's what we're gonna work with the school district on, and, as we move forward, to try to get this resolved. But we are requesting that, it's hard to say that a letter be required from the school district as a condition of approval. If you put yourself in my shoes, what if they wanna take the 10 acres at the corner of 56 and County Road 1 where our commercial land is? And they say that's where we wanna go, or we're not gonna give you a letter to say you can move forward. So I'm kind of caught in a catch-22 of what we do. I think we'll work it out with them where we can get them moved off of our site and they'll get the building impact fees and they can build a school wherever they want to. But to actually get a letter from them is kind of pinching us a little bit because I don't know if I'm gonna get a letter from them. I don't know where they wanna put their site, and if it's a private party agreement, then I guess we'll have to work that out. So that's where we are with those guys. We're not happy about it. I don't think anybody at the town is happy about it. I mean, we've all worked hard on 5 rounds of comments and over 3 years of working at this with that school site located in that area. So that's one of the conditions that we don't like. That's kind of where we are with our presentation. I'll present this master plan and answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, commissioners. You got questions of our applicant? Questions at this point?
I guess where is the requirement to get a letter from the school district? Was that incorporated into?
In the third condition.
Third condition.
To provide a letter, okay.
So
But-
if the school district has rejected this site, do you envision what would be in its place in that area?
Yeah, single family residential consistent with what you see here on this part of the property, like in this area. We would take and put more residential in that area. More trails would have to be added probably because we'd be short on our open space, so we'd have to come around some more trails and provide connectivity, but we'd include more residential.
So they would have to file an amended plan, right, if this was approved the way it is now?
That was the 5th filing we talked about.
Yeah, so they could, provide a preliminary, neighborhood master plan so neighborhood master plan for this specific area. Or, I suppose I could amend this, but I think a 5th filing, just the new neighborhood master plan for this specific area would be.
So one of those two procedures would have to happen.
Well, sorry if I don't understand, but what is the rationale behind the fact that they have to provide a letter from the school district? If the school district, I mean, I don't understand, maybe I missed something, but why are they obliged to, what is the motivation of asking them to say we're gonna move somewhere else or whatever? Because if they don't wanna have the lot, they don't get the lot and it's gonna be developed differently. So I kind of not understand the rationale behind that recommendation.
Rationale is so that we have documentation for project
Okay,
records moving forward, so that if there is ever a question as to why all of a sudden it fell off, when it had been included in a previously approved neighborhood master plan. And that's the biggest component, is that this was a previously approved component of the Farmstead second filing. And therefore the need that we would like documentation on record.
okay, just to have everything square.
Correct. So that if, in the event, and inevitably, even if it's 20 years down the road and
Yeah,
we're not here
okay.
to discuss it or know the background, it's there. There's the paper trail.
Okay, thank you.
Ton, it seems to me that with that third recommendation, that they're putting the onus on the applicant instead of the town putting the onus on the school district to say yes or no, we want
Yeah.
this site or we don't.
And it's the onus of the applicant because it is the applicant who's proposing this project. This is their application.
Okay.
This is what they're proposing, and to move forward, it's their responsibility to provide that documentation.
I guess we'll get there. I mean, we're not there tonight yet.
Let me ask you a question, a little bit different subject. And when I looked at where, you know, the rendering here of the plan, I see there's somewhat of a buffer area between what are considered the townhomes to the south and the gun club.
Yep.
But has there been some thought about trees, vegetation? I'm thinking noise from the gun club.
Yeah, there's a substantial landscape berm that'll be there, like
Okay.
feet high,
I was wondering.
with trees and everything on top of it. It's substantial.
So there will be a berm with trees just to help with the noise back there for those
Absolutely.
homes.
And then the rear of the townhomes, the garage backs up to that berm as well. So the front of the house essentially and the house will be facing the other way. So there's a substantial berm, and then there's a grade there as well. If you drive out there, there's a grade that the gun club kind of drops way off the hill. So, yeah, we thought about that.
Oh, but this is not the discussion of today. The layout and everything is not a discussion. We are just changing the zoning, correct?
We're doing,
And accepting the neighborhood.
and
master plan.
accepting this plan.
Yeah.
You know, Yep.
So the neighborhood master plan needs to be substantially the same. There is a little bit of wiggle room. It's usually about 10% is the wiggle room that can be changed from this concept. And that's also why we're asking for the documentation from the school district, because it was part of an originally, a previously approved concept that was presented to the town, accepted by the town, that this intent would be made. And so that's why we're strongly encouraging the applicant to work with the school district to get this resolved. The town isn't party to that agreement, but it was a previously approved concept and a commitment made to have a school site. So that's why we're asking for that. And again, on the master plan, it's conceptual to some degree, but the intent is to have these different types of densities in these areas, and there is a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot. Unless the applicant would need to come back before you and request a change because of an unforeseen
I
circumstance.
think in filing two, we had one instance where there was an alley put behind some lots, and that was okay to be done. And like Ken said, this school site, we have this whole property essentially 80% engineered already. We have their school site engineered already. We know that their school site is gonna drain. We know where their detention's gonna go. We know where the raw water lines. And now they're coming back the last hour and say we wanna move it, and we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars making sure that it works here. So we're really caught between a rock and a hard place, and if it's up to us, we'd like to have them move off the site.
That would, and you hinted at one of my questions, and not having the school there impacts certain things like open space requirements or amenity any types of the amenities that need to happen, anything like that. And I'm
Yeah, the trail connectivity, and there would be an open space requirement for the overall. Right now, overall Farmstead Filing 2 and Farmstead Filing 3, the open space kind of commingles, if you will. We have more open space on Filing 2 than we do on Filing 3, but overall it meets the intent. So if we did include lots in here, we'd have to go back and reassess that. There might be another park there. There might be another 2 or 3 or 4 acre park there. I don't know that yet until we go back and lay that out. That's what these guys are saying. We have to bring that back through and make sure everything works.
You'd have to do that filing 5 to make sure all of that fits together.
That's right.
And if you did a filing 5, that would include its own master plan, I guess, just for that.
As simple as it would be, yeah, it would be pretty simple, yeah. It'd be great if we could work out a way to absorb it into filing 3 if we get through preliminary, and then between preliminary and final, if we could bring it back in. I'm sure we could catch up with the drawings and get it there. I just don't know process-wise. We'll have to work with staff and see if there's some way we can wiggle it in to save us all time and money.
Let me ask you, what, if you had to redo the plan to incorporate whatever the, let's say the school district just says, all right, that, no, we're not gonna do this there. Why wouldn't you just redo this whole neighborhood master plan, come back in a couple weeks and give us one that shows that's already gone through again?
That's
Development
another
review.
couple weeks. It'd probably be another 8 months.
So you're worried about the delay?
It's a massive delay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to redo all the engineering. Have to move the school site south or east or wherever they would like to have it. Then have to go back and redo all of our engineering, make sure it works. And then resubmit to staff because like Todd said, they haven't reviewed a school site somewhere else on our property. All the open space, all the traffic, all the water lines, all the sewer lines, it's a giant conundrum.
So that's why
Yeah,
you'd be doing a 5 because you'd be able to go forward with
the rest of
this
the project.
area out the school and then do the 5, which obviously would
That's
take
right.
longer.
That was Todd's idea.
Did the commitment for the school property, did that come up with the first filing of Farmstead?
Yes, it's been shown that long in that position.
So
right
it's
there.
that commitment's that old, and I haven't seen your master development agreement. Is it part of that master development agreement?
I
Is
read
it
it, I
just
looked at it
between
today,
the
it's not
town
in the DA. no.
Yeah, but why in the email they say on April 23rd, the third field does not include school site.
On the April 2023,
We submitted our first plan without the school site on it. We wanted to put residential there. We wanted to pay them their fees so they could relocate off-site. And they said, no, we want the school site back on here. And the town said it's been shown in that spot since the first developer walked in the door. So we put it back on there in that spot that the school site already accepted, that the school district accepted already. And then we've been working towards that for the past 3 years.
can you clarify that for the commissioners, that the actual Farmstead one was under a different developer,
Yes.
and that at one point that was sold off
Yeah,
to you? Okay, because I'm not sure everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's who developed Farmstead One, was a previous developer, but they started this project. We picked it up and now we've been working on it for the past 2.5, almost 3 years.
I think they'll have even a different HOA and everything than Farmstead one. So,
It'll
yeah.
be the same but different. Yeah, it'll be a separate HOA. We're working on that right now with our attorneys, trying to figure that out. But it'll be a separate HOA, but like Farmstead One still gets the enjoyment of all the parks, all the trails, the clubhouse, pool, things like that. So we're trying to unwind that and figure out how that works.
Just want to make sure the commissioners understood.
Yeah, I forgot that there's so many new. I would have maybe done a little bit better history lesson, sorry.
Yeah, I have a separate question about, since we touched on parks and open space, there's a bit in the application that I found a little confusing, where it says that 10% open space is required for the neighborhood master plan, and the third filing has approximately 5% open space. And then it goes on to say that the park requirement has been exceeded. So are we like compensating by having additional park space versus open
It's,
space? I don't know who's much less worse.
I can provide clarification. So the requirements of our development code, we have an open space requirement, and then we also have a parks requirement. So open space is 10% of the overall site, whereas parks is then based upon acreage or number of residential units. So there, you can't include your parks in your open space requirement. They're two separate. So then we also have subdivision identity standards that is in there as well. But as Steve had pointed out, the Farmstead second filing, and this, including Farmstead third, was a master plan community. And in previous staff and previous reviews, they had agreed that, and when you look at the approved neighborhood master plan, you see that the open space and parks were included for both components. So they had on the west side, they had provided overage of the required open space for that 10%
Anderson. So there's more open space on the west side and less on the east side, but overall it meets the
Correct.
requirement.
And then,
Okay.
and then the parks, they're meeting the park requirement on both sides.
Yeah, okay. I wanna commend you for the commercial space and the mix of housing, but I will say that the park requirement and the lack of park on the east side does show. I think that that's pretty, that stands out to me as being really high density versus the amount of open space in this plan. And so that's just a little bit of, I don't know, feedback, I think, but
And it's actually less density than what was shown previously on the previous plans. And I guess the idea and intent behind it is to have a much larger usable park rather than smaller parks, to where you maybe could have larger functions and things like that over
And
near
that's
the
on the-
pool and facility. That's kind of on the west side.
Yeah.
And we did provide connections to get there, but there is, on the average, within 500 feet somewhere for you to go if you live there, to go to a park facility or a trail. So within 500 feet, and that was kind of the goal. And I think the standard is 1,000. You have to be within 1,000 feet. So, but we're on average about 500 feet on the east side.
thank you.
And the adaptive park is in two, correct? So-
It's on filing 2, right next to the pool and clubhouse. Yes. In the big park. It's in the big park, in the 10-acre park.
How does the density of filing 3 compare to filings 1 and 2?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
It's gotta be quite a bit different. One is all single family.
Single family. Yeah, one's all single family with some alley loaded product and some attached. It's probably very similar. I think we have a few more townhomes. You get a little bit more density with townhomes, but it's not exorbitant by any means, and we're well under the code.
So if I may, Farmstead 2 has 285 residential units. And Steve, do you have an image of Farmstead 2 in your deck?
But it also has 300 apartment units as well.
Yep, and then the apartments then are
See the apartments
at
here.
252.
252 apartments, and you have townhomes, attached product, alley loads, so you have some larger lot here. Then you also obviously have the 10-acre park. If you figure out the density, you're gonna lose 10 acres of residential homes in that. We also have a large open space detention area, and then we also have a detention facility here. Okay, so probably comparable. And it's a much smaller area on that side as well. The east side is a much larger area.
Yeah, it's kind of a tangential question. I guess this would be for Ann and Ton. The area that says Future Town Park, is that actually what is still contemplated there?
Correct, yes.
So people may have, well, it may not be a part of this development, they may have a big park there that could walk to.
We're working with Ken and staff on providing raw water to that facility as well, so it's gonna be great.
I have another comment, and I'm stuck on this school district letter. It just seems like it's an incredibly ambiguous statement on the today. With this map the way it is, and I may be very naive about how all these things work, but they're essentially requesting that this school district or the school site be moved within filing 3 at this late date.
After 5
And I don't know, so that would require re-engineering the whole thing.
Yes.
So on the last day or before this meeting, just kind of a letter saying we'd rather have it moved somewhere else.
Well, and we don't know the extent of that move. Again, we're not party to that conversation, and I do believe Todd from the school district just signed on to this
Okay.
call as well. So if there are questions,
Okay.
we could ask him. But again, the extent of the move, is it a 200-foot shift? Is it a 5,000-foot shift? We don't know what that requirement is or what that request is. So that's why we're just asking the applicant and the school district to work together to see what that impact is.
Knowing obviously that these developments are bringing in more families, particularly with some of the townhomes and that kind of thing. My ultimate question would be what impact would not having the school there have on the district's plan to provide those additional, to provide a facility for those additional children to go to school. So that's not, that weighs on me a bit. I understand what you're saying, David, but I think it's something we can talk about in our deliberations and maybe ask the gentleman from this school district about that.
I guess I just wanna put, you said we're not part of the communication, but we're also not familiar with it. We're not part of the agreement
Yeah.
between you and the school district either, so I'm not sure what that agreement says and how it might protect you or the school district. It's not really up to, it's not up to us to
Yeah,
decide.
It's true.
We need to stay outside of that.
Work it out between preliminary plat.
Any other questions of our applicant?
Just thank you for responding to the staff questions individually. That was really helpful. So
That
thanks
is
for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that. Okay. Well, at this point, I'd like to open the floor for the public hearing. And what that means is those of you who, if you have not signed in, please come up to this little black table here and make sure you sign in if you want to speak. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing for those who have signed in. Do you know who's first on the list? Terry?
Ira Hooker?
Please remember to state your name and your address.
First, I'd like to thank the commissioners and the planners for allowing me the opportunity to editorialize for a couple of minutes. First of all, this particular development, it disgusts me if you want to know the facts. My property borders very closely to it. When it was first platted, it was platted as a retirement facility, retirement community, I should say, and there were large lots. They attracted me to birth it. I bought property just 300 feet to the east of where this property is being developed, and I had intended, and my wife and I discussed purchasing one of those retirement plats, and it didn't develop. So as life, it changed. So we bought a place just east of this development. And ladies and gentlemen, when we moved here in 1991, Norman Rockwell would have been proud of Berthoud. Not anymore. He has got North Broomfield coming right in on Highway 56. And if that's what you folks want, that's what you'll get, because I'm too old to fight, too ornery, but I am well spoken and somewhat connected. So do what you will, and just be forewarned, we have an economy that's looking terrible, and this is a poor piece to be putting density. You once denied that density on this particular property, and I wished for you to come back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the list.
Kevin?
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Buer. I live at 548 East Highway 56. That is one of the properties immediately adjoining the school site. The property immediately south of mine is my in-laws, and I'm speaking on both our behalves. We probably account for 80% of that border with the school site. We purchased both of those properties on the assumption that it would be either open space or a school site. We have alpacas, market gardens, orchards, and other agricultural activities that we wish to remain separate from a residential subdivision. Our assumptions and our money and our efforts and our energy have all gone towards building out these properties in a way that allow us to live our lives under the assumptions that we reasonably made when we purchased our properties. So if this school site is not going to be occupied by a school, I cannot endorse any development immediately against that property line. Anything less than 110 feet, which is the depth of the houses, should be the bare minimum of a buffer between our properties and their properties. Alpaca are sensitive to dogs. These residential units will come with many dogs. Feral dogs and neighborhood dogs are the #1 predator of alpaca. And for the safety of my animals and my interests, I have to insist that a reasonable buffer be in place, that fencing and other things reasonably be upgraded to help ensure the safety of my interests, and that we're not encroached upon by homeowners who recklessly use Roundup, for example. We use organic products. We try and maintain a safe and healthy standard of living, and bringing these houses to our immediate property line would be detrimental to our goals and how we perceived our future developing here when we move to this area. So I can sympathize with the developer, but that corner has been occupied by a school or by open space throughout the entire time since we went under contract for the first property in 2019. I see no reason to allow the developer to switch that in the future. So if there is a fifth filing, I will oppose residential lots along the east edge. There was a temporary filing, or I don't know the nomenclature, but there had been residentials and a pocket park put, and that pocket park would have been out my back door. And that led me to write a written response of several pages outlining how Berthoud has defined an agricultural corridor in 2014, I believe, and has made agriculture and activities that I'm participating in part of its identity. Anything that doesn't uphold our ability to do that would be in direct juxtaposition of stated intents of this town. And so I have no particular objection to the broader development, but this school site has been obviously a very strong point of contention tonight and will remain so. Does it need to be a school? Not in my opinion. That's for others to decide. But if there is not a substantial buffer or green space, open space, particularly with trees and living up to Berthoud's tree city identity, would be appreciated. So anything along those lines, I'm willing to support, but anything that brings houses directly to that property line, I must actively oppose.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Scott Owen.
Hello, I'm Scott Owen. I'm at 21469 County Road 3. I'm just on the east side of Newell Lake, and I'm here representing, I'm the president of the Newell Lake Drainage District, which we've talked a little bit about this evening. I want to first thank the commissioners. I want to thank the developers. I believe that the work that they've done with Avant, I think that's how you pronounce it, has what we would understand is tried to hear what our request was, which is to honor the historical drainage that falls within Farmstead 3 that would continue to find its way to Newell Lake. What the engineering report that came back seemed, I think it was 113 pages. It was substantial. We're sure it cost a lot. On the surface, we think it sounds great. We are not in a position as a drainage district to hire the kind of legal team that would take to maybe confirm all of those engineering. So we would just kind of make sure that we were coming back into the commissioners and to the town just to make sure that we were on record of saying on paper, it's great. We just don't know that we really have the ability to have engineering confirm that engineering. It's really no more than that, but we believe what we're reading is fantastic, and so in full support.
Thank you, sir. That's everyone? Anyone? May I ask that you have this conversation outside the room? Thank you. We need to proceed. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Sign up. All right, if not, then I'm going to close the public hearing. And I would ask the applicant if he would like to address any of those comments that were made during the public hearing. If not, okay. I would like to ask staff about that drainage report. And the question, and it took into account the types of drainage, or the appropriate types of drainage, considering the drainage around Newell Lake, correct? Is that?
Yeah, and I can speak to some extent on that, and then of course Noah can also chime in on the technical components of that drainage. Newell Drainage has been one of our referral agencies throughout this process. So that information actually was very similar to what we've seen in their comments. Certainly we have acknowledged, and I believe, and Noah and his team have also acknowledged their concerns about historic flow patterns and making sure and ensuring that that continues forward. Noah and his team, of course, as professional engineers, do review the drainage reports, and their expertise is highly valued. And I don't believe that they have any concerns with that, what has been provided at this point, and addressing their concerns specifically. They will continue to be one of our referral agencies as this project proceeds. They will, throughout until final plat, they will receive an opportunity to always comment and follow us through this process. So if Noah would like to chime in about the specifics, I will let him do that.
Noah, can you tell us about, what was reviewed and why you came to the conclusions that you did?
Yeah, at this level, neighborhood master plan level, we look at overall drainage patterns. They don't have a site grading or proposed grading at this point in the exhibits that we review, so we primarily review existing contours and drainage flow arrows that they present to us. So the review that we've done at this point has been very preliminary for the neighborhood master plan level. Obviously, as we go through prelim plat and final plat, we'll do a more thorough review. We look at placement of detention facilities, sizing of detention facilities, that they've incorporated stormwater detention and water quality into their overall design, and that they're trying to mimic to the best of their ability historic drainage patterns. So that is what we've done at this level, and to Tom's point, we will continue to do that as they move through the review and development process.
Thank you. Questions about this to Noah or Tom? Thank you, Noah. I also, go ahead. Noah, did you want to say something?
I just said you're welcome.
Okay. Didn't quite hear that. Thank you. All right. I did want to ask the developer a question, if you would. Can you tell us about any proposed buffering or bordering on the east side of the development?
We just look at what the town's recommendations are per code, and that's the buffering that we would typically meet. Like we mentioned, this has been a school site, proposed as a school site since the project's inception, and now it's not. The school district says they don't want it, so there's gonna be something different there. So we'll have to look at what that looks like, but our intent would be to at least meet the town's standards for buffering if there are any required there. And we will sit down and work with the adjacent property owner to see if there's anything we can do.
So you would work with the property, that was going to be my next question. Would you work with the property owners on some type of appropriate buffering? If that,
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and commit to anything, but we'll sit down and have a chat and see what's going on and see if we can help out for sure. I mean, 110 foot is a row of homes. That's substantial. So I'd be happy to sit down and see what we can do. And we meet with the Newell district, we met with the Bacon Lake lateral guys, we meet with everybody that's affected by our project. So he'd be no different.
And if you were to have to file the fifth filing, obviously this would definitely be something we'd be talking about at that point if that would
Yes.
happen.
Yeah, you'd have the same discussion, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other questions of that? Go ahead.
No, and Madam Chair, just as a reminder, the representatives from the school district is on Zoom, so if there are any pointed questions for the school district, I know public comment has closed, but if you had any questions for them, they are on Zoom.
Okay. Sounds good. And that is, do we know who that is? Is it the same person that wrote this letter? Okay, so it's Todd, Mr. Bacone. Okay. Mr. Bacone, can you hear us? This is Karen Anderson from the Planning Commission.
Yes, I can. Good evening.
We did have some questions about the situation here with the school that has been proposed in the northeast corner. If you decide not to have the school here and you cannot work something out with the developer of Farmstead 3's neighborhood master plan, then what would there be a plan to add a school somewhere else? I mean, where does this fit? Where did this fit in with your overall plan to assist with the growth of Berthoud and the number of children in the district?
Yeah, thanks for the question and discussion. Yeah, I guess to back up a little bit, this site has been in our plan now for since 2017. Our master and long range plan includes this site for needed capacity in the future. So it is a site that we definitely need, and that's why in the initial referral, we said site instead of payment in lieu of. Actually, all we're asking, as we went through our process to verify site location and environmental impacts, we did a lot of study and work with our attorneys and insurance companies. And really what it came down to is where the site's at within that 2,000-foot radius of an active well. The recommendation from our insurance and council was to not accept this site at this location. It really shifted outside of that 2,000 foot. So, we want to work with the developer. We want to get this done because I think it's in both of our interest. We're just asking for it to be shifted south to get out of that buffer zone, that 2,000 foot buffer zone.
Can we see the picture again here so that gives us an idea of where he's talking about shifting that? See the side picture. So, Mr. Bacone, what you're saying is you would like to have that discussion, or I don't know if you've had that discussion with the developer. Is that you're saying that's something you have not discussed with the developer at this point?
No, we have had some pretty good discussions about it. And at this point, the comments from the developer was they wouldn't be willing to move the site. So, yeah, we're kind of stuck. It's not where we want to be. Typically, this type of process goes pretty smooth. But that was the last correspondence as of yesterday. Was the site wasn't going to move. And that's their call. That's not anything we get involved in. We can just make the recommendation and deem it as an acceptable or non-acceptable site for our contracts for the payment in lieu of or the land. So our hope is to shift it outside of that 2,000 feet, have it within development because that's where our future plans are for a new school. Just because obviously we all know of the growth in Berthoud.
And Mr. Bacone, another question. Is there some type of guideline other than the insurance issue? Is there some type of guideline or rule that the district has that would not let them use that site otherwise?
If I just use that, the houses, so the guidelines is, there can't be an existing well a new well drilled within 2,000 feet of a school, existing school. We're in a little bit of a pinch because obviously the well's there and the site's being put within that distance, and that's by state statute. So that's kind of the risk that we're all in is, putting a school there, we all knowingly would put a school within that 2,000 foot, which is not, that's not insurance or a council recommendation, that's actually by oil and gas standards.
That's what I don't understand is what I guess I'm asking you about. Isn't the standard really 500 feet if the well already exists?
It is, yep.
And there is no other like rule or guideline that would make it either difficult or prohibit you from putting the school there.
It's a 2,000 feet, so it doesn't, with the new school being placed within a 2,000 foot, it falls inside the recommended not building, so it's pretty clear not recommended that way, because of the existing well, but, that's, the challenge is the risk and environmental impact if something does happen, is it exists because we would normally build a school within that 2,000 feet.
Okay, and would there be any detriment to your plan for accommodating the growth of Berthoud if you don't end up building in this development?
Yeah, the challenge is, this site's been under plan, kind of know it's coming at some point. That point's coming sooner rather than later, and there's no projected, school site out there, in another development. We have one other school site on the the west side of 27 in Heron Lakes. Unfortunately, that's not where really the growth is. The growth's on the east side of the town where the school site is. So this really is a pretty pivotal location for a school site.
Commissioners, any other questions of Mr. Picone?
When did the well get placed, or when did the school district become aware that there's a well within 2,000 feet of the school site?
Did you hear that, Mr. Picone, that question?
Yes, I did, thank you. In about the last 2 months, I would say, we were made aware, we worked with the state, oil and gas division, we went through this active well, non-active well. And then honestly, we spent a lot of time and effort to see if we could get it to work, with our attorneys and, insurance. The challenge is so I'll just leave it at that. We've known for the last few months that it has existed, and we've been working through the process to the point we got to here recently.
Any other questions? Or
Yeah,
did you want to-
and if I understand, your suggestion would be to just pull this lot down, more to the south. Is that correct? Where we have, I don't remember what it is, but, so you are located northeast at the moment, you would love to go southeast, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is our ask is, we need, I don't remember the exact footage, but I think it was 400 to 500 feet just southeast of where it's at, and that gets us out of that 2,000 foot radius.
That's a little hard for me to picture because I'm trying to think of, wouldn't that be right in the middle of the other two areas that are being developed?
So Madam Chair, if I may, I tried to measure here using my handy dandy sticky note and the potential width of some of the lots. And it's very scientific, this is planner measuring here. The shift of 400 to 500 feet right under the word school site. So it's shifting the site by about 2/3 down, again, caveat, not accurate measurement, guesstimate.
So that would go into that area that's in kind of the brown with the, okay. got it.
Yeah.
So on the other side of Nebraska.
So you're really dividing those parcels then?
Yeah,
by
or
moving that.
looking at flop, can you exchange the school site and flop, flop something else and.
As opposed to putting it in the bottom corner or something. There, yeah, okay. I got it.
I have a question, Mr. Picone. There's been two figures that I've heard, 500 feet and 2,000 feet. Can you explain to me what those two different numbers are?
Yes, and there's a lot. I would say there's an easy explanation, but there's a pretty complicated explanation when you actually look at the statute behind each. So I can just give a general explanation. If there was an existing well, basically, right, the law changed 2 years ago that says there can't be a school public facility within 2,000 foot of a well. It was 500 feet when this started, so that's kind of I don't remember the exact date. I can look it up here, but in January of 2021, the Carbon Management Commission updated the setbacks to 2,000 feet for well location compared to a school facility.
I want to make sure I understand that, Mr. McCone. Do you believe that law is only for when you're building a new well? Or does it apply, that 2,000 feet apply when there's an existing well? Where I'm getting a little confused. Are you still there? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't build a site within 2,000 foot, or they can't be well drilled within 2,000 foot of a school facility. Is that what you're asking, or?
What I'm confused about is, does that 2,000 square feet apply only when you're creating a new well, right? Not an existing well, right? The 500 feet applies when the well is already existing. Isn't that correct? Or maybe I don't understand. You're still there, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having problems with that. Yeah. I believe you're correct. The information I have now from our attorney that looked at the state statute was that because of where the well is compared to the school site, it falls within that 200 feet. New or existing, I'd have to look into, and that's what's being judged against. That we should not do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Picone? Commissioners? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Picone. We appreciate your coming to us via Zoom because I think we all had several questions.
Yes, no, thank you. Appreciate the time and thanks for your work you do.
Okay, commissioners, that brings us basically to our time for deliberation on the neighborhood master plan portion of this land use matter. So, discussion. Who wants to start?
I could start. I mean, the way
Thank you,
the
Joe.
master plan is, from what we've heard today, the way the master plan is shown, I think we can. It seems like almost for certain there's not going to be a school in that location as shown in this master plan.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we all have to go in eyes wide open that this is not what it's going to be built.
Yeah.
And that's,
Which I think is unfortunate because I'm assuming that people who have bought lots in filing two, I'm assuming you've sold lots in filing two already. are under the impression that there
There's gonna be a school.
is
Be a
going to
school
be
there.
a school there. And so it's unfortunate that the timing is such that, they've made this decision now, but I agree that it's definitely out of the bounds of the planning commission to dictate,
Yeah.
any direction to the school district, and I would like to see, to respect the planning process and previous filings, effort made to have a school in the development still. I think that would kind of like respect the process that has come before this. And I understand the school taking a conservative stance on the distance to the well. The timing is unfortunate. But I think that given the suggestion from staff, I think I support including language in the resolution that encourages the developer to work with the school district.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how we should word that if we're not happy with the wording. But that's my recommendation.
Let me ask you this question. Does that mean that you would support requiring the letter from the school district? And I think that's part of the difficult part of this.
Well, I think it's phrased kind of in a peculiar way because this says confirming that the school district no longer desires a future school site in the Farmstead 3 filing. And I don't know that we necessarily need them to say that they no longer desire a school site. Maybe we could just change the wording so that they have this option of saying the school site is no longer compatible with the needs of the school. It's not that they didn't want it to go in the development, it just the way that it fits into the development is not compatible, but
Well, we all wonder if it would be possible just to move the site to the south. That's what we are thinking, all of us, but we are not saying it. So, question: what does it represent to readapt and go to the south for I don't know a few hundred feet? Yeah.
And I think that's I think we'll continue to work with the school district. It'll either work or it won't work, one of the two. But I can't be under their thumb to say you must do it. Because, like I said, we're behind the 8 ball already. If it takes me another 8 months to restart all my plans and I'll lose all the engineering that we've done on this site already because I gotta move something, that's very bad for us.
Yeah, but you understand that there will never be a school at that place. They don't want to.
Yeah, this position here, there'll never be a school at that site, so that's our filing 5. But if it's gonna move somewhere else in our development, and I gotta start over with another neighborhood master plan and all the staff referrals and go through the process again, I can't make that happen. And I think we could sit down with the school district and come back and say, we worked something out with those guys, or we didn't, and we're gonna pay them their money, and they can go find another site.
Yeah.
They do this all the time, it's not like as if they don't acquire school sites, they acquire school sites all over the place.
Yeah, well, but what I mean, I don't know how we can translate that, but we would encourage you to sit down with them and find a solution because I understand that people having both a property on feeling 1 and 2 and wanting to buy something on feeling 3, they filing so they just want to have they just want to make sure there's going to be a school, and people having anticipated on the 2 previous filings. If there's no school, that's going to be a complete different picture. So I don't know how we can encourage you to sit down and find a solution for that.
And let's deliberate among us right now. Thank you. We
Shirley.
do appreciate your input, but let's spend some time talking about
Last
it.
comment, I think Ann's referral, her comment, like, there is gonna need to be some sort of letter. Like, the school district is gonna have to deliver something, like you said, to say yes or no, or it's got worked out, so there's gonna have to be some letter, I just don't know what that looks like, so.
Thank you. Let's lay some groundwork here. I think we basically have 4 options here. You know, as far as what we do. We either approve this with conditions, whatever those may be, right? We can all agree to that. That's one of our options. We can not approve the neighborhood master plan with an explanation that we would send to the, or we should say, we can recommend no approval to the Board of Trustees with an explanation. You know, we can do that, our rationale. We can approve with no conditions or less conditions And we do have a fourth option, and that would be to ask for, to request that this hearing be continued for a certain period of time so that this can get worked out one way or another. So that's another option that we have. I just wanted to lay those out so that we're open. And remember, the other thing we have to do is take a look at the criteria, and I was hoping that you all could put the criteria back on the screen so we can go through those as well. We need to think about, has this application met the criteria for approval or not? That's another step that we have to take.
Yeah, so, and that was in the document we received, but suddenly yesterday or today came another issue, and all the discussion we are having now are around the school positioning. So all the rest is okay because the staff did the job and pretty well as usual. So that is not the discussion of today. The only discussion we have is on the location of the school.
Which
Well, I
would
think-
change the plating or
Yeah.
not the plating, but the master plan.
Which would,
And-
I think there's an initial, I think you're right, and I think there's an initial decision that because of that change, do we need to go through the conditions of or the criteria for approval? Or does that not apply yet until and if that doesn't apply, do we need to do a continuance to make sure that what the neighborhood master plan that we're looking at is the appropriate one? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if this answers your question, but it's my impression that the version that we see in front of us does meet the criteria for approval, but it is also my impression that may change considerably.
Right, and that's kind of fluid at this point.
Yeah.
But do we need to look at those? Can we put that up on the screen like you had before?
Well, and again, that was one of my questions. Are we talking about what's inside the rezoning, or are we just talking about the boundaries?
We're talking about the neighborhood, the actual neighborhood master plan that the applicant provided, and whether or not, and we're talking about either we make a recommendation to the board of approval, or we recommend that they not approve it. Either way, we can do that with reasons or conditions if we wanted to do it that way. But I almost think though that if we at all want to talk about approval, we still have to show that it meets the criteria in the code. And if we say, yes, it does, but we think there's this other issue, we can always either continue it. I'm just trying to think of what's the right procedural way to do this? And I think if we're going to make any recommendation with approval, then we have to show that it meets the criteria as well. And because that's what the code says, that's what the code dictates, that we consider the criteria.
My opinion, Chairperson, is that the criteria is met, but the map is not, and they conflict at this point in time. I don't know.
I'm saying
How to
because
solve
are you
that.
saying because the map's too, so it's kind of fluid at this point, we don't know exactly what's happening.
The school site on the map is not gonna be accurate. And so the criteria for the rezoning or the two sets of changes that are being proposed, I mean, I don't think that school is gonna be on that site. Does that,
Well, the question is, are we deciding now for where the school would be located, or just the boundaries of the filing? It's a question to the town.
The planning commission is not considering where that future school site
Right.
will be.
Leave
okay,
that up to us.
Yeah. Okay,
okay, so just the criteria
yes.
need
is
to-
what we need to be reviewing.
Right, knowing that Ton crafted language with the applicant to indicate that the box where the future school site is proposed now it's not on this rendering.
Yeah.
But it states that should this box not be a school site, it could be considered in the future under Farmstead Filing 5. However, if that box also needs to change, that it will need to change. And the criteria for approval for a neighborhood master, so a zoning, it's just a line on a map saying, within this area, it's going to be zone X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's a paper process for zoning. The neighborhood master plan is more complex because you're considering the uses that will be on site, the commercial, the different types of densities, the open space, the trails, the connectivity, as well as the fact that, you know, for almost 10 years or 5 years, it has illustrated that there is a future school site, and the school district has indicated that they're depending on that school site for their future operational needs. So what you're considering tonight is, in general, does this neighborhood master plan with the uses and the functions meet the criteria for approval with conditions as proposed, with conditions as edited, without conditions, or do you want to ask for that continuance so that you can get more information? But in general, the neighborhood master plan shows, it's like the recipe on how the development will be constructed.
If there is a situation in which the developer and the school district reach an agreement where the school will be in a different part of the development, would we start with the neighborhood master plan again, or would we see that in the preliminary plat?
It's really dependent, so there is a situation where it could just come in the preliminary plat if it's a slight change. So if it truly is just a 500-foot shift to the south, we likely would just see that in preliminary plat. If it's substantial, where, say to Steve's point, is that if their school district is requesting that it be on that northwest corner where the commercial is, and for some reason they agree upon that, that would be a significant change because that commercial is a significant component in intensity of use. And so if that shifted somewhere else in itself, that would be a substantial change that would need to come back through likely a neighborhood master plan amendment.
So if it's a material change, then it would have to be amended. If it's immaterial to the area like that shift. But what happens if you do that shift and then that might change the density by over 10%, then what happens?
Yes, and there is language within our code that if there was a modification to the neighborhood master plan that increases density by a certain amount, that would require an amendment to the neighborhood master plan. If it were to decrease the density, I don't believe that it would necessarily require a public hearing. It's when you increase the intensity of the use is when that generally will necessitate a new public hearing.
So if it's material or it impacts any of those thresholds, and if possible, we would be doing an amended neighborhood master plan.
And staff would evaluate that based upon what was resubmitted. And so, and then we would have that discussion with the applicant as to what that looks like, and if something has been triggered, we would make that determination.
See, and that's where. Let me ask you, my fellow commissioners, how you feel about potentially a continuance for a limited period of time. Because I think it's difficult to make this decision.
I really wanna respect the developer's time, and so I know that a continuance is not ideal, and I do wanna acknowledge that. But I don't necessarily feel comfortable sending this for approval to the town board without a clearer picture of the relationship between the way that the neighborhood master plan is laid out and the agreement with the school district.
Yeah, I agree with you, Abigail. I mean, the other part of it is, I know we have the criteria for this master plan, but what was approved in filings 1 and 2 was that there was gonna be a school in third filing. And the way that it's presented here, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a school in the third filing. And so that's to me, that's a major change from the agreement for all of Farmstead and the town. And, yeah, this Farmstead brings a lot of kids and a lot of people in this community. And that, as the school district said, that's where the growth is, that's where a school needs to be, so.
So what does that mean then, as far as the decision? Are we leaning more towards some type of continuance? Or again, I too, I agree with Abby that, we know that what the developers put into this and appreciate, his time, and his patience with this. But I think I too feel some consternation about this issue not being worked out, and one way or the other. And I also, but I don't want it to be delayed for months. I'm thinking giving them a certain period of time, say we'd like to see before we hear again.
Are there certain criteria that we need to establish to recommend a continuance?
I don't believe so. For continuance, planning commission choice.
If we do a continuance, it doesn't move to the town board then?
Correct.
It's that it would come back to this board. Or, I mean, yeah.
And if you continue, I was quickly trying to look for my calendar app and now I'm under pressure. I'm like, I can't find it. If you continue to a date certain, it doesn't have to be re-advertised. The applicant understands when that deadline is to perform and get with the school district. And then we can, when Tawn is scheduled to take this to the Board of Trustees, we do pre-advertise both hearings because it ends up saving time. She would just say that it is being continued to a date certain. And then that way, that hearing wouldn't have to be re-advertised and all of that. So I'm trying to look at find my schedule here.
So were you looking at like a September type of thing?
So we would set a date tonight is what you're saying, and then
Yes.
at that point, we wouldn't need to re-advertise it since it was set.
Right, and one thing that you could do is ask the applicant for some date schedules and with the school district on the phone, determine if there is a time frame that will work for both of them to come to this decision. So that might help influence the decision and allow me to actually find my calendar. Okay.
I guess let's ask some of those questions. So let's first ask the school district, is there a time frame that would work for you? Todd, are you still there? Mr. Riccone?
Yes,
Mr.
yes, I
Riccone,
am.
sorry.
Honestly, I would defer to the developer. I mean, they're underneath more of the time crunch than we are, so we can accommodate the development and the time that, I would defer that to the developer because we can work with that time frame the developer has. As I said, we want to get this, it doesn't have anyone just prolonging this, so we do want to work something out.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to ask you that question, and again, I think I could speak for the rest of us and say we don't take this lightly. Doing this, matter of fact, is the first time since I was on a plan commission in Indiana that we continued anything. I've done this for a long time, so none of us takes this lightly.
Yeah.
We understand your time frame.
This is like top priority for us, so I can do it tomorrow. I mean, it doesn't matter for me anytime. The sooner the better for us. I mean, I guess I would submit that it gets passed with the conditions and we try to figure it out between now and town board and let town board weigh in on it. The board of trustees is what I would propose, and that way it can still move forward. We'll work it out between now and town board trustees, and then they can make the decision. We'll either have a plan that we can use or it won't work. We'll have to come back through again. At least I can move forward is what I would submit.
So September 10th is the town board of trustees hearing, scheduled hearing, so that's just a couple weeks.
Yeah, so if we pass this tonight with conditions, we could attend town board and we'll try to work it out before September 10th. And if it doesn't work, we'll come back through this again. We can't figure it out, but I can do any time. I can meet tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, commissioners. Obviously, that's a suggestion. I'm not sure if we're comfortable with that suggestion. Thoughts about that?
provide just some additional information. The town board of trustees hearing is currently scheduled for the 10th. However, the staff reports need to be ready to go by the week before. So and that's Memorial Day, so we don't, or Labor Day, I'm sorry. So although the hearing's on the 10th, I would need to have any additional information no later than the 3rd. And again, keeping in mind that that is a holiday weekend, so that when you're making your decision as to appropriate time frame, do keep that in mind that that would actually give the applicant and the school district less time.
So we would actually have to hear it then if we wanted to make that meeting. Then we would have to hear it like on the 22nd of August?
Yeah, and that would not be possible.
We have other things there. Yes. Okay. Then that would push it back to, when is the next council meeting after that, after the one we were just talking about?
September 12th, I believe.
That's planning commission.
Right, because we're bringing it back.
So we would have to hear it on the 12th, and then when would they hear it?
And they would hear it about, let me get to my calendar. So then if you hear it on September 12th, let's see, it's the 4th. They could hear it, if everything is smooth, they could hear it on September 24th. That's really a tight timeline because then we'd have to have our packet ready to go on the 16th, following your hearing on the 12th. I mean, if that's the only thing that, and there are no other changes that you want to have happen between those, we can do it. It's tight, but we can do it. We do it.
Thoughts, commissioners?
I think that sounds more realistic than an agreement being reached by September 3rd. Just because it's my impression that I'm not hearing a whole lot of flexibility on either the school district or the developer side. And I know you want to work together and you all want the school and the development, but what I'm hearing is the school will not put it within 2,000 feet and the developer has no interest in moving to a different part of the plat. So I have concerns about pushing it to the town board to review in a couple weeks. If that just doesn't give the two parties a lot of
Yeah,
time
that's
to
what I was
reach an
thinking too.
agreement, given those
Totally agree.
circumstances.
And I hate to give you guys a crunch, but at the same time, I feel uneasy about sending this to the board, to the town board right now, either way. Without at least the opportunity for those discussions and then for a decision to be made one way or another. And because then I don't think, part of our job is to give the town board information to make sure things have happened that are appropriate before this gets to them, so they can make the ultimate decision. And I just don't feel comfortable that we've done that if we.
Correct. I agree.
So is there anyone
I
that
agree.
is resisting a continuance at this point that you wanna discuss?
And it's okay to, if you
Yeah.
believe differently, to say something
Yeah.
else, that's fine.
I could do either a continuance or I actually like this third condition, the way it's written. I could probably go that way if
But then are we really just throwing this back on the board or not? Or am I just oversimplifying that?
feeling it's gonna go to the town board to make a decision anyway.
So you think, I just want to make sure I understand, I'm just restating this.
Yeah.
So what you believe is that if we do a continuance, we're really, ultimately the result may be just their decision anyway, is that what you're saying?
I guess, yeah, what do we? I don't have my thoughts collected, I'm sorry. What is the hope with the continuance? You're hoping that the school district either agrees to build, that gives people time to work it out, but,
I guess I guess the question then becomes from what you're saying, are they at a pretty hard impasse right now? And so nothing's gonna change if we give them more time. Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah.
That's what I actually think, and if
Yeah, in a way, the third condition highly encourage the two parts of talking together. That's the point.
Do you have any concerns that what the town board will see will be different than what we've seen tonight? Because I think that there is a chance, based on Todd's explanation, that the site of the school is shifted, but not to a point where it would trigger a new neighborhood master plan. So I think that it's possible that what the town board sees would be different than what we
If we gave them time, that's what you're saying. If we
No,
gave them time,
if
it would
we
be different.
approved it tonight with this condition.
Okay, so you're saying it's possible it could be different if we approved it with that condition, that they may not be as at a hard of an impasse as we think. I'm just trying to lay all this out here because I think it's difficult to make a decision without really considering all of these things.
Yeah, I just don't wanna get us in a position where we're making a recommendation to the town board and then what they see is actually different from what we saw.
Yeah.
If I may jump in, I'm sorry. If you do the continuance and the applicant is able to shift the graphic, they might not have to come back and amend that graphic through the amended neighborhood master plan process. They're amending it through this process, and instead of a couple of months delay, they're just having a couple weeks delay too. So that's just, from a process standpoint, something to consider.
you
In
say
other words-
shift the graphic, you're saying move the school site to the south.
If that is an agreement that can be reached, then that in essence is amending the neighborhood master plan. And they wouldn't have to go through, and if it falls within the purview of a minor amendment, that's one thing that could have been done administratively, but if it's a shift that's great enough that could have been a formal amendment, then you're actually saving the applicant time
I see
by
what you're
having to
saying.
go through that full amendment process.
Because they'll make those changes before we see it in the second time after the continuance. And then that would save the time of, okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so just always trying to think of efficiency, what might be best. In the end, it's your call, but just wanted to throw that potential good consequence out there that could help the applicant get back on track more quickly.
So you mean it's preferable to let them talk together before making a decision?
I think she's just pointing out what might be a pro of doing that. I think we're all trying to weigh the pros and cons of doing this. And I think she's just trying to point that out, that would save time in the long run if that's
Yeah.
ultimately what the decision is. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've sat on 3 plan commissions. We've only done a continuance once, it's not something that happens very often. But the only time it ever happened was when we had a pretty interesting circumstance like this.
Yeah, and in the third recommendation, there's an open, well, we probably all understand that there's a need to have a school somewhere in that neighborhood, and we don't want to let it open that there's not going to be a school in the development. We would love to see a school in the development. You see what I mean? So confirming either the school district no longer desire a future school site in the Farmstead number 3.
So I think what you're saying is, in the motion, that the suggested motion we were given, there is encouragement to try to come to some type of an agreement to have a school there,
Well,
right? Is that what you're saying?
in the first part of the recommendation says you have to have a letter saying we don't wanna have a school anymore, or we have an agreement to go somewhere else. But I don't like the first part, you know, not having a school anymore. I mean, I'm not thinking for me, I'm thinking for the town and the families going there and not having a school. I have kids and grandkids and I kind of understand it, but is it our role to discuss this? That's the good question.
It's, I mean, that is more of a town board decision, I almost think. I mean, honestly, the other option is to not recommend approval on the basis that the school is located within 2,000 feet of a well. That this, as shown in the master plan, school is shown, you know, within a buffer zone that I believe I understood that was that would violate a state statute to put a school within 2,000 feet of a well. And so that would be like I guess a fatal flaw in the master plan.
And we could do that, and if, and we could show, there's a couple criteria here that probably, where we could say it doesn't meet that criteria for that reason, you know, but, and that's what we would have to do.
That would advance it to the town board and that would still have the developers an opportunity to address it, I think, between now and meeting with the town board.
And that is one of the alternatives we have, for sure. The only problem the only negative I would see with that one is we wouldn't be able to, I guess unless we could explain it to say, we don't think it meets this criteria for that reason. That, whatever I think it might be a couple of them it wouldn't meet. But two is to say, we also felt that there needed to be this time for discussion about the school. Now, the applicant wouldn't have to do that during that time period because we didn't make that a condition in an approval. We can't make conditions we can suggest it, but we can't make a condition in a, where we don't disapprove something, or we make a recommendation to disapprove. You know, it's a difficult situation. Let's think of it. Can we narrow it to a couple of those alternatives? Let's try to narrow it a little bit here. And do a little bit of a straw poll, maybe that'll get us where we want to be. Is there anybody in favor of an outright disapproval at this point? It's okay to say if you are or not. Remember, this is an open discussion.
I'm pretty close, actually. Pretty close to that.
Okay.
What is the question? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Would you be in favor of an outright disapproval or recommendation for disapproval to the town board? So Joe is close to that. Okay, so let's go on to another.
Yeah, because I like the fourth option.
So we have two, maybe that's our possibility. What about approving or recommending approval with the three conditions, including that third one, that was in the suggested motion from the Community Development Department? Everybody in favor of that at this point?
What was that again?
I'm in favor of that, but the wording on the recommendation, I guess, is just confusing to me.
Yeah, you can change the wording.
Yeah, I don't know who the, you know, I don't know what that means. That for two other parties to negotiate and then meet that criteria somehow or another. So I'm just unclear on that language.
So what you're saying is you might be in favor of that if there's some wordsmithing changes.
Yes.
Gabby?
I think I'm still in the boat of favoring a continuance.
Okay. And as for myself, I'm sort of in between this motion and a continuance, but I keep thinking that a continuance might be the better option, and then we have more of a firm decision going forward. Could save times if there is an agreement, so. And it's okay if we disagree.
Yeah.
Remember that. That's the idea behind talking about this and hearing each other out.
Either way, I mean, I don't wanna be on the planning commission that let the school go away.
Yeah.
That the town needs, I mean, so I think we have to that seems to be the answer. Somehow that has to get to the solution in my mind. And however we best do that, or however the developer can best do that. I'm happy to work with the developer on how they would wanna see that, but that to me, that has to be the goal.
So, and I feel that too. Even though I don't have any grandchildren yet, I get this, you know. So then do we get there with a continuance? I mean, because I'm guessing, tell me if I'm wrong about this, staff, that if we did make the decision to request a continuance for that date certain, would that be with the message that this gives time for those discussions and that a decision be made one way or the other?
That would be correct.
So we could do it that way.
I think that's the best option.
But I wanna know how Joe feels about that.
I'm
You're
okay
okay
with
with
that
that?
continuance if, but I guess what I heard from the developers, they did not want to seek a continuance. So, I mean, if we honor that, and I'm happy to hear from them again if that's okay with the other planning commission, just to get the, after this discussion, I mean, what they feel is their.
Well, I think, as much as I wanna hear from him, I think he's sort of told us how he feels about that. And now is our time to kind of deliberate over these things. And the problem we have there is we have a due process problem if we keep allowing him to speak and not everyone else. So.
Okay.
And we're all cognizant of not getting in trouble from a constitutional standpoint, so.
I would favor a continuance.
Does someone want to make that motion at this point? And we need to add the dates to that motion, correct?
And that would be the planning commission meeting on September 12th.
Let me check my calendar.
And for those in the audience, we're not trying to waste your time. We're just trying to make sure that the best decision possible is made and that we give the town board something that allows them to make the final decision with all the i's dotted and t's crossed before they see it. We're not trying to waste your time tonight. We just want to make sure that we kind of meet that objective.
So Madam Chair, if I may, I think what I hear you saying is that a consideration is to continue the planning commission hearing for Farmstead third filing to September 12th, 2014, with the expectation that the school site will be identified. 2024. 2024, thank you. Did I say
Or
23?
that it be identified,
Oh, we're really going back
or
in
that
time.
a firm decision is made
What date is
that there will be no school there, one of the two.
Correct.
Okay. I move to continue the planning commission hearing for Farmstead third filing, neighborhood master plan and rezoning to September 12th under the, what was the word you used? Expectation that the developer and school district will work together to decide the location of the proposed school or reach the agreement that the school site will not be within the development.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, so Commissioner Smith made the motion, Commissioner Pond seconds. Can we please take the roll?
Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Chairperson Anderson.
Yes. With that, the motion passes. Again, audience, thank you for your time. Applicant, we appreciate your time. Hoping that this can get worked out. Mr. Picone, I hope you're willing to have those discussions with our developer, our applicant. Okay, with that, let's move on to, I believe staff reports is next. I don't have my agenda.
Thank you all for your time, for your patience, and
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
input.
Okay, so yes, looks like that we have staff reports next.
All right, so we are in the process of looking for a new planning technician to add to our team.
Yes.
So a building permit technician, sorry. Building permit technician to add to the team. We right now have 1.5. And so we are looking for another to have 2.5. So that will be a nice addition to the planning team. We have had another landscape architect go out and take a look at some of the site plans for commercial properties in town and have noticed some deficiencies. So we will be reaching out to those commercial property owners and asking them to bring their sites back into compliance with the plans that were originally approved. So we've been working on that. The last town board of trustees meeting was on short-term rentals, was it?
No, that
It was-
wasn't the last one. It's
We
the
had
one
a
before
3-week break. All right, so Tawn is getting ready to present short-term rentals to the town board of trustees next Tuesday. And do you want to talk about the webinars that are planned?
So it will be, it's the second and final reading, so I will make a decision hopefully at this hearing to approve the short-term rental regulations. We do have 2 webinars or public webinars scheduled for the 2 immediately days after. So the first is scheduled for, that would be Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then we have a second scheduled for Thursday morning at 7 a.m. to accommodate different schedules. The intent of the webinar, assuming that they are approved on Tuesday, would be to just meet with potential applicants to go over the application process. So that will be required submittal items, application fees, and what that will, the structure of how they'll proceed through review. And then that will give them essentially a month, 30 days, to work on their applications and hopefully submit then a clean and complete submittal, which by my calculations, the regulations would go into effect on September 12th. I believe, don't quote me on that, but I believe that's a 30-day.
So that's when people would kind of do the lottery.
It would be first come, first served. We have a specific website email address for short-term rental submittals. There will be an automatic response, so the moment they submit it, they will receive an automatic that will essentially help timestamp it. And we will go, whoever submits first in order will be processed.
Are you worried at all the website's gonna go down? Everybody's gonna be on at the same time?
Not at all.
Like Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and right now, we're guesstimating there may be 35 just by our compliance team taking a look at current short-term rental websites. They're guessing around 35 are in town, and quite a few of those are in the Heron Lakes development. The Heron Lakes Metro District does not allow short-term rentals, and one of the requirements of this process is going to be your HOA or Metro District must provide the town with evidence that they allow them, because we are not going to go against that. So if nearly, 10 or so are in Heron Lakes out of the 35, that doesn't leave a lot. Now, people could be out there, you know, planning their dream scenario to have short-term rental in Berthoud, but we're hopeful that it is not an onslaught and that individuals have an opportunity to have a complete application and that there isn't the stress of a large number. And also for staff, because we are a lean staff.
Right. So at this hearing of the town board, I know you, in the preliminary one, they had asked for information to help them determine or consider density of these. So that would be presented them Tuesday.
Correct, they have asked for, at the previous hearing, I did provide them examples, per planning commission's recommendation separation requirements. So I did provide them actual visuals, that showed a separation requirement of, I think it did 250 feet and 500 feet. The code is currently drafted so that it would be a 500 feet, but there was a lot of discussion and they requested to see additional examples and they had called out 200, 400, and 600 feet. So we have our GIS analyst has provided a wonderful map with those buffers in addition to an 800 and 1,000 foot buffer. And we have selected properties throughout town and have also included those properties that continue to operate against the regulations, all mapped out so that they can see what that overlap and that correlation so they can determine what is the appropriate or what they believe is the appropriate separation. So, and then there was some clarification on limiting the ownership or the number of licenses a property owner could have at any given time, which is currently quoted at 2. They just wanted some additional language that would potentially close any loopholes. So we've, working with our attorney, have clarified the definition of what property owner what that includes. So we've added that to the draft as well. And then they had some ongoing conversation about parking and wanting to allow at least one on-street parking. So that has been drafted so that for those properties, my suggested regulation is allowing one on-street for those properties that don't currently have a garage and or driveway. And it has to be within 1 block of the short-term rental. So we'll see, and that's based upon feedback from the public as well as the town boards. So trying to strike a balance. So those are reflected. So otherwise, nothing else has been changed. So that's why I'm hopeful that it will move on. So we'll see.
Keep our fingers crossed, right? Thank you.
And other than that, that concludes staff reports. Because I'm taking that back, because there has been a lot of activity with some big land use cases and code rewriting, we have not been able to get in the field to look at that fall field trip. Walt has gone out and he has found some downtowns that he thinks would be good for us to visit. I don't know if we're going to get there this fall. And then next time, on the 22nd, Ayers and Associates will be here as well as Loveland Housing Authority and Habitat for Humanity to talk about the housing project and the study that's going to be happening as kind of our formal kickoff meeting.
I think that's gonna be fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. And 4 days before my son's wedding. And all the relatives are coming in the next morning.
Well, hopefully it will be, an hour and a half meeting, maybe 2, I don't know.
That's okay, I probably needed to calm you down.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Great, well, all right. Anything that anyone wants to bring up at this point? Commissioners?
Are we still on the, yeah. I have a little bit of a personal update, but I'm not sure it's ready for prime time.
Do we need to officially end?
Okay, so then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
A motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
So Commissioner Donnelly moved to adjourn and Commissioner Hoffman seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and abstentions. We are adjourned. All right.
All right.
Wait for it, Terry.
Terry's gonna be like,
Magic Terry has a question.